Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. Today I want to talk about loving without hypocrisy and for what it means for our love to be sincere. Often when we think of hypocritical love, we think of saying something to someone, telling them we love them, having the kind words, but behind their back, stabbing them in the back, speaking unkind words, that kind of a thing. And that certainly is, but that is a more of a that is a part of hypocrisy, but that's also showing double-mindedness. Where these people, they're living on both sides, right? And we know that's obviously not what God desires. But there is a finer aspect of hypocritical love that's important to understand, and that is when you're trying to be loving. So you're trying to force that love, and you think you really are. So you may not want to do something for somebody, but you'll do it because that's the nice thing to do. You're trying to be loving. That's also hypocritical love. Real love, you don't have to try. You just love. You don't have to force it. So, and when it's coming from your heart, when you're trying to love but it's not there, it's really not in you, then that's hypocritical. So you see that type of love that is real. When you give that is what's powerful. That's what God asks of us. That's how He wants us to love Him. That's how He wants to love others. That's how He wants to love ourselves, is with that kind of depth of sincerity. And understanding what that pure love is. You have to understand all its characteristics. And that's a process that we grow and that we learn about. And so, because with God, remember I was talking about how every characteristic is a side of every other characteristic. So to understand love, you have to understand mercy, to understand its depths, to understand mercy, to righteousness, holiness, honor, forgiveness, all these things, right? And because they all affect love, because that's how the love of God is. Because God is God, truth is truth, He is who He is. So He's always all those characteristics all the time. And that's what He desires of us, for our love to be with such honesty and such sincerity. And so, but what happens is we don't really feel that for people because of our own brokenness and lack of understanding of love and feeling love. And that's why I said before, it's very important for you to address that love with the Father first and address that love within your life. Because if you do not have the love, you cannot give it. You can only give what you truly have. But as you grow in that understanding of what love is, and you can start to give that to people. And it will always continue to grow because you will grow more and more knowledgeable about who God is. And as you do that, your love expands because you're learning of His characteristics, which all make up love. So one of the things that, especially in our society, that's missing in love is honor. And so when you really love someone, you are honoring them. And honor to me is such a beautiful word because of all that it evokes. It's a lifting up, it's a respect, it's your cherishing and exalting really what that person is as a unique creation by God. Okay, yes, remember, sin is like a disease, but that is different from that creation of God. And so real love is honoring. And when you start to feel that love, because when you're with the Father and you start to abide in His love, you feel honor from Him. Yes, you feel honor from the Father, and that is an amazing thing, because when He gives that to you, because you understand how special you are in His sight, it is an amazing thing, and you give it to other people. So it's this interaction between your relationship with the Father, your understanding of who He is and who you are to Him, that really affects how you treat other people and how you feel about other people. So for your love to be without hypocrisy, to have that real love, you have to have that connection with God. But that's why people are hypocritical and they try to be loving, because they don't really feel the love. So they can't treat that person like they really feel, right? So if that's where you're at, you have to stop and pull back and go to the Father and say, why don't I feel this love? What is it about me? Because ultimately that's an issue about you. Now, someone may be dishonoring you, okay? And even when you talk to them about that, they still continue to honor who you are and you as that person in God's creation. And if that's true, then you'll have to separate yourself because you'll be harmed in that. Because once you're really loving, you're more open, you're more vulnerable. So you can't be around abusive relationships and people that continue to abuse you, whether emotionally, physically, whatever it is. So because you have to honor that, because that will just destroy you. And that's very important to honor that. And when you make those decisions, that's what I'm talking about, is understanding the importance of God's grace, because sometimes those are real hard to make those choices. But when you understand God's grace and how when you walk in that obedience and in that love, when that love is honor, then He will provide for you and care for you. So this is a very important topic to understand, because as long as you're abiding in that hypocritical love, you're blinding yourself. So you got to get to the state of your own spirit. So you have to get in there and say, why don't I feel this? Seek that with God. Learn what that real love is, because it may be you're not understanding mercy. You're not understanding justice. You're not understanding righteousness. And you're not understanding God's power. Because love is the consummation of that you feel when you have all those characteristics of God coming at you. So when you feel God's mercy and His peace and His provision and His forgiveness, and you're abiding and walking all that, that love just grows more and more powerful, because that's what you experience. It's all those things together. So it's understanding who God is and what that pure love is, so that you can walk in it and so that you can give it. And that's when you're giving true love without hypocrisy. And when people underestimate the power of real love, because they've never had it in its purity. But when you experience that from someone, when you give it and when you receive it, there is nothing more powerful in somebody's life. And that is how God will save all His children, is that they're going to start to see His love. Now, what's interesting is that this love is there, but people are blind to it. And some people are starting to open up to it, and they're starting to understand and experience and grow in that. And it's bringing a lot of healing and transformation, because again, that love of God is deep, and there's a lot of things that the walls and the defenses and the lies and the things that we've held on to, but as we embrace and seek Him, He breaks through all that and heals all that and redeems all that. But some people's hearts are hardened to receiving that love. And you see that because they can't give any mercy to people, which is they just want to judge them or criticize them. And because mercy is a part of God's love. So when you can't give that to people, you're not feeling the love. And so your heart is being hardened against that love of God. And a reason that part of this is happening is because they have yet to understand their own brokenness. Because once you understand truly the depths of your following your own way and your own will, because until you understand how dark that really is, you won't let it go. There'll be some aspect of it that you'll be holding on to instead of fully following God's wisdom in every area of your life. And so as long as you're doing that and holding on to your own will, you're not going to experience that love of God. You're not going to be able to give that love of God fully. So some people, because they're not understanding when they walk their own way what that creates, they're prohibiting themselves, and that's hardening their hearts from experiencing that love, so they don't give it to other people. And they have yet to understand the depth of what Christ has given and what their salvation is, which is really getting that new mind and that new spirit, which means you got to let go fully of the other one. But that's part of why even the trials and tribulations are there, is to show you that your ways are not good, and they harm you, and they harm other people. And that's that purpose of that tribulation, right? Is to so that people learn righteousness, which is walking in the ways of God, which is walking in true loving kindness without hypocrisy. So this is why their hearts are being hardened, but ultimately that is good because they can't receive that love yet, because they've got to learn the depths of their own brokenness. Because once they learn that, that is ultimately when they embrace the fullness of the salvation of God, and they start walking and seeking in his ways. Okay, so that's why that's happening in their lives. And this pit, and that's what you begin to see. When you really start turning to God's way, you start seeing what your life was and what this world is. It is just this pit of like just harm and destruction. And it is just a horrible place because it is just people's own wills manifesting as they desire without the wisdom of God, because they don't want the wisdom of God. They want to go their own way. And so this is what it creates. And when you are open to understand that, and that you have been a big part in creating that, that's when you understand what sin and death in your own way and all that entails. And that's when you truly want the ways of God and you seek him diligently with all your heart, because you understand that love comes from him. This is a very important part for you to examine your heart in, because again, hypocritical love can be very blinding, and a lot of people are blind to this part where they believe they're loving because they're trying to be loving, and they say, well, look at all these loving things that I do. But deep in their heart, they struggle with different things, bitterness or anger or holding on to things. And as I said, you don't have to try to love. When you have that love, that's just what you do. It's a delight. It's easy. It just flows from you. And that's what I mean. When you start understanding the power of what love is and you start giving that and receiving it, it is the most powerful thing. And that is what's going to redeem this world. So until people start walking in that love and all that it entails, you're not helping this world. To be a light, you've got to understand this love of God and how it's not without hypocrisy and all the characteristics that it has that are of God, and to know those intimately so that you're walking in those and growing in those in your life. Till next time, keep stirring the deep. It's the one thing that changes everything else.